So a warm welcome to this session on market intelligence and how we learn more about BOP consumers and markets. I am Cecilia Vaverka, a member of the IAP team based in Stockholm. I am joined for this session by a number of panelists. It's a selection of companies from both the IAP and BIF programs. So I'm very happy and pleased to welcome Mark Hemworth, Rent to Own, Lauren Thomas, Mozambikes, Makarand Sorte, Cropserve, and Bas Hoffman, Text to Change. And together we will try to look into these and explore a bit further the questions around how we can gather market intelligence around producers, suppliers, consumers, and learn more about what the people at the BOP, what they want, believe, and will trust in. I'm going to start off with an introduction to sort of set the scene, and I will then ask the panelists to do 5-minute brief presentations, and we'll end off with a Q&A session where I hope that you will be sharing your experiences and insights as well, so that we can have a dynamic interaction. Right. So, when we're looking at the BOP market and targeting the BOP market, there is an increased interest in doing this, and part of the reason is that the BOP people at the BOP level are viewed more as resources rather than victims, so more as consumers and producers that actually have a demand and a need for affordable products and services. And obviously this means that there's an untapped market that provides new opportunities. And when targeting this new kind of nascent market, then there are often misconceptions about the needs and the demands, and one sort of a common one may be that it's enough to slash prices to make a product affordable and then people will buy it. But the BOP is a lot more complex than that as a segment, and they often lack regular jobs, they have unpredictable salaries, they're part of an informal economy, which means that they don't have access to banking services as such. And this means that their purchasing decisions are based on a range of various factors, and obviously affordability is one of them, but as we have discussed previously, trust, dignity, aspiration are also parts of what is difficult or important to focus on. And so it becomes clear that in order to target this market effectively, we need to know more about the habits and everything that sort of lies behind the demand. So to give you an example of these kinds of assumptions that one can have about the needs and the wants, this is from a shanty town in Mumbai, where people cannot afford buying a house or getting access to running water. So this is something that they accept, this reality they accept, and what they how they sort of go about their daily lives then is to spend money on things that they can get now. So what may then seem like counterintuitive choices is logical based on their reality. And some examples here is that a large percentage have television sets, pressure cookers and gas stoves, maybe more, not so surprising that people would buy, but then also telephones, obviously, that a large share of people own. And looking at habits that actually shape demands, there is in a recent UNDP Human Development Report from the Philippines, there is an example of local habits where the poor households, they prefer, in Manila, they prefer buying water from middlemen, which obviously is quite expensive, because they cannot afford the initial cost of actually setting up house connections. So what sort of, in the long term, what they spend on water becomes really expensive, as opposed to if they could have had the sort of piped water supply. But their the habits and how their income works, they wouldn't be able to afford that initial cost. So a possible solution in this case would obviously be to introduce some kind of payment model that could take care of that initial cost and maybe split it up into installments, whatnot, in order to set up a piped water supply. And this example shows us that in order to come up with solutions to tackle the provision of such basic services and needs at an affordable price, we need to learn more about the habits and how they shape the demand at the BOP level. So some questions stemming from this introduction and some that we'd like to dig a little deeper into is what information it is that we actually need about the BOP market, what the key challenges are in understanding the BOP consumers and markets, and how they can be overcome, and where resources and knowledge can be found. So this shows it's a feasibility study produced by, it's an Oxfam affiliate in the Netherlands in 2012 that shows that the information that primarily is needed, if we look at the sort of big, larger chunks of the pie chart, they represent local habits and practices, also the structure of distribution channels and value chains, contacts in the field and the capacities of these contacts and links, as well as social and environmental issues. So if you look at these, the various items combined, we can see that an understanding and more information about the local context is something that, at least in this study, came up as sort of key. And there are other forums that discuss the same issue and how to gain insights about BOP consumers. So an example of this is it's the BOP Summit that took place recently in the US in October, which gathered around 200 leaders in the corporate, non-profit, development, and entrepreneurial worlds, to discuss these issues. And in relation to understanding the BOP, some of the conclusions that they came up with was what we have just looked into, that understanding the local context is key to building these sustainable ventures. And it's important to sort of go there and be there and let go of one's own values and context, and rather show a willingness to learn and understand. And when you've reached that level, it's important to let the local context actually help drive the project, and that can be done by including local leaders and harnessing local entrepreneurial talents. And if we continue looking at some actors that can actually, in this space, that could be helpful in providing market intelligence, obviously NGOs that work closely to the local communities, they are very well placed in terms of both economic, social mapping, understanding local habits, as well as mapping local distribution chains. So they're a valuable sort of stakeholder and actor in this space. And other examples are innovative local ICT-related players that would provide market research and other related services. and as well as universities, experts, anthropologists that do have the local wisdom and know-how that they can share. And obviously women play an important role in this aspect as well, being very close to where money is handled on a daily basis and knowing very well the habits of the local communities. So just some quick examples of some actors that are out there and that do BOP market research and intelligence. The Emerging Future Labs, for instance, it's an organization that was founded in India, and they are currently looking into, based on the sort of the success of the prepaid model in the banking industry, they are focusing on how to deal with uncertainties in the BOP income that they experience, and how the BOP manage their assets. And this is obviously in order to gain insights on consumer behavior at the BOP level. Histra is another example. It's a global consulting firm that usually works in consortiums of public, private sector, local communities to research various issues. And they've come out with quite a few practitioner guides on different topics. And one of the ones mentioned here is a guide on how to capture the opportunities to leverage ICT in the BOP in sectors such as education, health, and agriculture. And last but not least, I need to obviously shed light on the IAP and also BIF knowledge sharing tool that we have, the Practitioner Hub, which is a web-based tool with a lot of resources in the sort of inclusive business space and how to reach BOP markets. And I really encourage you to visit, because there are lots of publications that are very helpful. We have the spotlights, which are pictures of those up to the left there, and one of the latest publications looked at designing products and services for illiterate users, which is a very sort of important area, obviously, in this market. So I really encourage you to look at the blogs and publications. There are also various checklists for people involved in inclusive business ventures, such as how to reach the rural consumer, if you're investor ready, and they give you a list of various points to sort of tick off when you're developing your projects. And there are also networks on the Practitioner Hub based on sector and country as well, so that you can look into the country or specific sectors that you're interested in. I think I'll wrap things up here, and I will hand over the floor to the panelists. And I've asked them to try to keep the 5-minute limit in order for us to be able to have a discussion afterwards. So I think we'll start off with Mark Hemsworth, who represents Rent to Own, which is a company based in Zambia, focused on supporting rural entrepreneurs for them to increase their income by supplying productive assets together with financing and training services. Please, Mark.
Thank you, Cecilia. I think a lot of the findings in the reports were pretty spot on based on what I've seen in the past. So it's good to see those materials being produced. So a few years ago, I came to Zambia, about 6 years ago, and the kind of the market solution that I had come up with to help more entrepreneurs in rural Zambia. Just happened to be the one thing that seemed to be impossible. It was to provide financing to smallholder farmers and small businesses in rural Zambia. And everyone that I talked to, especially who knew Zambia very well, was, yeah, it's impossible. It's not going to work. You're crazy. And so kind of the market intelligence component to our business is very fundamental. And I think I'll hopefully share some of the insights that we've learned over the past few years, and definitely happy to take questions. So yeah, my name is Mark Hemsworth. I started Rent-to-Own 3 years ago with a colleague who was here a few minutes ago, a co-founder who is from a rural area in Zambia, in northwestern province. Now, the mission or the goal of Rent-to-Own is to connect these rural entrepreneurs to the assets, the productive assets that they need. That started out with ox carts. It molded into more of a equipment-based business. And what we've learned along the way is that we have to provide not only the financing, but also the delivery, the training, and the ongoing support during the contract to make sure that these entrepreneurs are going to be successful. This is quite different than what other organizations are offering in terms of financing. Usually it is just financing. And even at that, it's quite difficult to access that financing. So another part of our model that's very important is for us to be in the field, to have a local agent who is trusted in the community to work with these entrepreneurs so that they can see that there is access to this service. So we combine all those services, and the way that we addressed the market intelligence piece of our business was to actually live in the community with our clients. That's how the business started. I think this is my colleague, my co-founder Chico. This is us interviewing a few years ago. You can tell my hair is a bit shorter. And from there we built the business. So the next thing to do was, and so this we keep with us, this idea of working very closely with the communities that we operate in. But in the last year, we've really had to change how we operate, because this wasn't a scalable approach entirely. So a little bit on what we're doing now, and the way we've addressed how do we go from 100 clients to 1,000 clients and still keep some of these basic principles that we used to make sure that we knew what our clients were thinking, and how best to interact with them. So we still keep a bit of it. New people that join the company and don't have enough experience, we make sure that they do spend enough time in the field to really learn how things work in the field. Another thing that we did, so the biggest change we made in this year was to build a strong MIS, and this is a bit of a map of what all the technology we use, and this is so that we can keep track of how our clients are doing, how they're performing on the spot, and that way we can monitor very closely and make sure that we make the necessary changes before things go too far wrong. I think, of course, when we do have a new change that we want to roll out, we trial it in the field, make sure that it makes sense, pilot it in a small area, and then we roll it out. I'm getting the 1 minute mark, so I'll wrap it up pretty quickly. There's just some things that we, what can I say? There's some things that we continually see in the field that we don't expect, and those things I think are kind of impossible to map out from the beginning. But if you really work closely with your clients, you can continually adapt and make the changes as you go. So I'll leave it at that, and then hopefully we'll have some questions later. Thanks.
Okay, so the next panelist is Lauren Thomas from Mozambikes, which is a company focusing on building a bicycle industry that provides affordable and efficient transportation to improve lives in rural Mozambique. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you, Cecilia. I'm Lauren Thomas, co-founder of Mozambikes. We are based out of Maputo, Mozambique. I will speak very briefly about what we do, just to frame the discussion about market intelligence and then go into the topic. So Mozambikes is a social business that is fighting poverty with bicycles. Bicycles are generally accepted as a tool for development. They have a much greater impact in rural Africa, particularly Mozambique, which is a highly fragmented country. And in addition to just putting more bicycles on the street, we are working on various models to get bicycles specifically to groups such as women farmers. We're holding workshops on what a bicycle is and how to use it and how to ride it. We are initiating campaigns to increase the safety and conditions of bicycles, just promoting bicycles as something that people should want in general. So this is the motor of the business. How do we get more bicycles on the street is through branding bicycles. This way we're bringing the public and private sector inside of our mission because they are essentially purchasing the branding or purchasing fully branded bicycles. In both cases, people are either getting bicycles at deeply reduced rates or they're getting them for free as stakeholders of these branding customers. So they'll give them to their communities for goodwill or to their employees for transport or for bonuses. And every time we have a new meeting, we're learning for different uses why a company or an NGO or an organization would want to purchase or brand bicycles. Branding is a neat model, I think, for a lot of different products. It's particularly useful where there is a lot of value in the branding. So currently in Mozambique, as I mentioned, it's highly fragmented. Mozambicans were never aggregated into shanty towns and townships and things like that. So the countryside is literally dotted with homes of rural Mozambicans, and it is traditionally very difficult, if not impossible, to advertise to them as an aggregate 25 million people who are targets for products like flour, seed, microfinance credit, and a whole host of other industries. And so bicycles literally enter their communities. They're around for 3 to 5 years, have very high brand loyalty because it's something that they own. So there's a lot of benefits to the various components of our model. The branding partners are getting CSR, they're getting their advertising, internal transport, for whatever reason they're purchasing the bicycles. The end users are getting reliable, affordable transport, and then the tool for economic advancement, access to education, clean water, health. And the community is getting a clean form of transport, which will hopefully avoid the trend of many cities moving into with traffic and congestion. And then, Mozambikes is also doing a lot of safety campaigns, cultural events, which are great for the community as well. Just to reiterate how effective and how important a bicycle is in rural Africa, some of these pictures, I think, highlight that point. So the topic of market intelligence. I wanted to give a few statistics just to frame the conversation because Mozambique is a very different country from Uganda and Kenya and Ghana and these other countries that we hear a lot about because they're going through a lot of, really kind of sexy technologies right now. Mozambique has 25 million people. Almost half are living below the poverty line, less than $2 per day. Mobile penetration, including Maputo, the capital city, is 32%, but outside Maputo, or without Maputo, is only 10%. Internet usage, just above 4%, and then to put it in terms that we can all understand, less than 1% are on Facebook. So a lot of these SMS technologies, surveys, mobile health, it just doesn't apply in Mozambique yet. So what kind of information did we need when we're going out to develop our business model? A lot about, how we would price it, the different specifications of the bicycles, the products, the value for the advertising consumers. This is all the type of market intelligence that we found valuable. And how did we get that? I think a lot of our points may seem a bit intuitive. They're not as sophisticated as some of the other things that we'll hear on the panel, but I think that they're important all the same. The first one is just going out and talking to people. When we first investigated why there were not more bicycles in Mozambique, because it seems we were almost naive, like, oh, people all over ride bicycles, why don't you in Mozambique? And the answer was simply that very, very low quality bicycles were being sold for high prices because transport costs make very low, cheap product expensive at the end of the day. So you have this really kind of crappy product that's still too expensive for people. So everything was wrong with the fundamentals of the market. Get insight from and feedback from those with communications. So we talk a lot with NGOs, with really, really small rural partners, very small NGOs, orphanages, churches. They're there and they're really willing to give you lots of feedback. Like I said, every meeting that we have, they have different ideas about why they need bicycles or why they would need to get a message out into the rural market. And the more we learn about their model, we also make a lot of suggestions about how we could form a program together. Work with statistics that do exist. When we think about our target market, we generally use a funnel because there's no statistic out there for, number of women that walk more than 2.5 hours per day that are producing a product that's too heavy for them to carry, So we work backwards and we start with the population and, take out a certain age group, take out, certain people with capabilities, estimates on how many bicycles are out there in the market, and we back into, where we believe to be an average number of bicycles for Mozambique of about 1.7 million. While it's never going to be perfect, it helps us understand that it's not 25 million and it's not 500. So, and then the last point is, we started in the shallow end. We do a lot of market testing. We started with one model, one bicycle. And as we have rolled that out into the market, we've found a lot of ways where that needs to be changed. And our container that's arriving in December will have 18 changes from the previous bicycle. None aesthetic. You wouldn't even know it's a different bicycle. It's more teeth in the crank and, things like that. And that's how we evolve with our existing product. And then with the IAP, we were just selected in this past funding, and we will be launching new products, so bicycle ambulances, bicycle trailers, and similarly we'll be using all the intelligence that we've got from our first bicycle, but also we'll be rolling that out slowly with a few models to see what really works. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lauren. We'll continue with Macarand, representing Cropserve, which is a company also based here in Zambia, focused on developing sustainable distribution models to supply small-scale farmers with affordable and high-quality agro inputs. Please.
Hi, morning everybody. I'm Makarand Sorte. I represent Cropserve. Due to the time constraints, Cecilia has warned us, but I need to take you a bit brief back that how we came to it is, we are a subsidiary of a company called as United Phosphorus, and our founders or the MD had a vision of creating a model of called as Unimarts, which will be one-stop shop for the farmers, especially looking into small-scale sector, that is small-scale farmers. And about some 4 years back, when we really started studying the small-scale sector of Zambia, small-scale farmers, we realized that the yields which they are getting from their maize was too low. It was 1.6 on average, as compared to other countries where Egypt may be ranking to 11 tons per hectare. That is the national average. And then we thought that there is a lot of work to be done in this sector. And then we started thinking how to start with. Because reaching small-scale farmers in Zambia, I mean, they're scattered all over. They might be in interiors with a group of 15 or 25, and so it was not cost-effective for us to reach. And that is when we came in touch with another NGO called as DAP, DAPP, which are into a lot of activities, especially on BOP. And one of their segment was agriculture. So these guys are basically running farmer schools, which helped us to connect to the farmers and train the volunteers of DAP to do demos for the chemicals, agrochemicals, for sustainable agriculture. Now, we worked in it for 1.5 years. And after that, the next challenge came is, okay, now the farmers are aware that yes, the technology, the yields can go up, but how the availability of products are going to come in. And that is where another now thinking started for our company, and that is where I came in touch with Andrew, which is the country manager. And we started discussing about it. And then he came up with a project, okay, we need to develop a chain of agro dealers which are into the rural areas among the farmers. And then with help of BIF, we started developing these agro dealers with partnering another firm called as NutriAid, which is an organization into identifying these agro dealers who can be a potential entrepreneur for the future. And that is how we started all this operation. And then another habit of the Zambian farmers, or the Zambians in particular, we can say we observed is about the buying decision, what we call it as. Then we realized that usually how they work is as soon as the FRA pays, that is the food reserve agencies to the farmers, they don't have a habit of saving their money. As soon as they have money, they need to go and buy out. And if you miss that time, then you miss the whole opportunity. And that's where we thought, no, the agro dealers needs to be there with the products available at that point of time. And that is how we started developing them. And I think now we have developed about 30 agro dealers overall Zambia. And we are still developing them. The next challenge is about when we are trying to grow these agro dealers, they have a constraint of finance. So that is where, again, we had a meeting with Zanaco and other guys where Andrew and I myself are working together to finance agro dealers. And I think once that challenge is resolved, these agro dealers are going to develop more and more, and which will help us to reach the smallest farmer. That's how it is, right? So that's it. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And the final panelist, Bas Hoffman from Text to Change, which is an organization that focuses on mobile market research, providing insights to help both NGOs in their programming work, as well as companies to better understand their customers' preferences and attitudes. And Text to Change is based in Uganda. Please, Bas.
Good afternoon. My name is Bas Hoefman. I'm the founder and director of Text to Change. In 2006, I was working for ING Bank in Amsterdam, and I learned about the enormous growth of mobile technology in Africa. And I thought, if so many people have a mobile phone, why don't we reach out with this technology to people with health messages? And I thought it was a crazy idea, and I did some research on that, and I realized, hey, it wasn't done the way we pictured it, like an interactive health quiz, and that's why we founded Text to Change. We got our first grant from the pharmaceutical company Merck Sharp and Dome, and they recommended us to go to Uganda and to execute the first large-scale M-Health campaign. And everything went wrong. That's always the good thing. So but we learned a lot. But that's how Text to Change was founded. So, but the demographic landscape in Africa is changing. Consumer patterns are changing. but Africa is booming, but it's also very diverse. NGOs need to show the impact, so they've been receiving a lot of funding for the years, but now they really have to show the funding, so there's the impact, so the pressure is quite high, but also the market has become very competitive. So there is a strong need of good quality data, but it's often not available. Household surveys are usually outdated. So it's very important for NGOs and organizations to know, so who are your customers actually? So how do they think, how do they behave, and more importantly, how to reach them. But there are 600 mobile phone subscribers, 600 million mobile phone subscribers in Africa. So we decided to use that as a platform to gather market intelligence and to avail it as a platform so that clients can engage with their target audience on a personal level. So since 2008, we've been doing that in 15 countries in Africa. And mobile is obviously very suitable because it's cost effective, it's reliable, and and you gather really nearly real-time information. So the first program I just mentioned, so it was the HIV/AIDS quiz. We had a response rate of 20%, and we had an uptake of people going for testing at our partnering clinics of 40%. So that really encouraged us to continue with this. But as I said, a lot of things went wrong. One of the things I would like to mention is that we had the answering code, the USSD code, for people to send back their answers. It was initially 666, and in a highly religious country such as Uganda, it was quite challenging that so we became the devil's advocate rather than the HIV/AIDS awareness program. But the partnering mobile operator said it's no problem, this one is available, but yeah, we all know why it was available. So 5 years down the road, we've done like over 70 projects, and we're working in 17 countries. We have 28 employees. And we're not only servicing NGOs, but we're also trying to engage with the private sector. And that's where the Innovations Against Poverty came in. They're funding our projects. It's called Research Africa. And we thought if we have that platform for NGOs, why don't we avail it to the private sector as well and perform market research. So how does it work? So we create panels, mobile panels. So we have a database of over 20 million mobile subscribers, and we start data mining them and profiling them, and we invite people to participate in surveys of giving their opinions or opinion polls, and we reward them with airtime or mobile money. And so far, we've profiled database in Uganda, which is a nationwide representative panel of around 3,000 people. So, so as I said, we incentivize people. So the short-term social impact is that people get incentives. So they spend around 10 to 12% of their income on airtime. So it's a very valuable incentive. And in the end, or in the long run, we get feedback, so people can incorporate it in policies, but also can use that to make tailor-made products for the BOP market. So the lessons we learned, so there's enormous potential for a good quality near-time data. Market research is relatively new, so although the more established companies are already there, but it's still very new and people don't want to invest in that as such. We have high response rates as compared to other campaigns or other research efforts. And as for now, the NGOs are still our largest client group, but the private sector is really coming in as it is becoming more competitive. Still, we need to combine it with face-to-face data collection and also combine it with the traditional media, such as radio, which is still immensely popular. You have to take the cultural differences into account, so it's like 54 different countries in Africa. Even in Uganda, you already have like, 40 different languages. And it's hard to find good quality personnel in Uganda for us that have really good knowledge about market research. So, and it's also very challenging for us to keep our panel alive, so you have to have a lot of surveys to keep people engaged and to not create a fatigue. So what we're going to do in 2014, so we are going to use the panel we already have and start marketing it and focus more on sales. And we are expanding to neighboring countries. We've already done programs in Kenya and Tanzania. These are a few of our clients, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Bas. I thought we would spend the last 10-15 minutes on questions for the panelists, and also it would be also fantastic if the audience would like to share insights and experiences when it comes to the obstacles that we have talked about to gain insight about the BOP. Maybe some strategies for collecting such information and how to sort of overcome these challenges. So I open the floor for questions.
It's more of an observation than a question. At IDE, we do a lot of human-centered design, and the speaker from D-Light mentioned it. It is such a hugely valuable tool. It's mainly qualitative. It's really getting under the skin of your customer, and it saves you a huge amount of failing later. You fail early, fail often, rapid prototype, go out there, find out what your customers think about your product before you even think about production of the product. So I'd be very happy to talk to people who are interested more about that, but we have come to that. We partnered with IDEO to develop a human-centered design toolkit for organizations working in development, and it's such a fantastic technique to use to find out more about your customers and avoid failing at a later stage.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Michael from the Stockholm School of Economics, and I just have one question for the panelists, especially thinking of markets, maybe more also for you from Mozambikes. How do you measure the impact you have on your market, especially when you think of advertisements and your clients, and maybe also for the other pounds as well? The impact in the market is something that interests me. Thank you.
Monitoring and evaluation is always a huge topic because it is so difficult. So how do we start doing that? It's a very good question. We try to collect as much data on the end users of the bicycles as possible. The bicycles that get donated, it's very easy because we have a very scrutinous process to give those bicycles away. So we have a lot of information on them. This year, we have also gotten some funding from USAID with the explicit purpose of launching a monitoring and evaluation social impact annual report, and we're hiring social impact consultancy advisors to do that. So I won't say that it's easy and we just fell into it. We are bringing in outside help that will help us design the monitoring plan, make sure that we're not getting over our skis and trying to collect too many indicators at any one time, that we are reaching out to the right people. So we'll be implementing with the branding bicycle clients when they purchase bicycles with us, they'll fill out a short survey of the exact provinces where the bicycles will be going to, for what purpose, you know, and so we'll be able to get some insight there into how the bicycles will be used, which will also then help us understand the impact that they'll have. But this whole process will be developed over the course of an entire year, and then we'll put out our first report and hopefully constantly keep that updated. Thanks.
In our space, well, generally I think collaboration is key to scale up. In our space, in the lighting space, and I don't think there's a lot of collaboration that happens, and it should. This is question particularly to Lauren and to Bas. I mean, in your case, Lauren, there's World Bicycle Relief that I think is also operating here in Zambia. Have you guys started to look at collaborative efforts with them? And then in Bas's case, the UNICEF and has their own SMS-based platform in Uganda. Telerivet, there's a whole bunch of other SMS-based platforms. Is there any collaboration happening in your space?
You want to go first?
Oh, yeah, thanks for your question. So in Uganda, back in 2007-8 when we started was relatively new. And now there are many platforms that are basically doing the same or could do the same. Collaboration is there, but it's also very competitive. So we wanted to work with UNICEF on a larger scale or with other organizations, but it has proven to be quite challenging to work together. It seems that every organization wants to own their own platform, and as much as we are all chasing or pursuing the same goal, it's quite a competitive market. So, yeah, it happens, but reinventing the wheel is quite common.
I think we had a question over here. Oh, sorry, no,
it's
go
okay.
ahead, go ahead.
I was just going to touch on your point. So we have been in contact with World Bicycle Relief, but the models, even though they might seem really similar, that we are selling a bicycle rather than just giving them away, the models are really different because we are very intensive on the ground. When we bring in the components, it's nut and bolt and spoke, and we do everything locally to give more jobs in Mozambique, and we paint and we brand the bicycles locally. And World Bicycle Relief does less in terms of the technical capacity on the ground because their bicycles are all the same. They're not doing the branding. And so then we have the advertising component and they don't. So where we would overlap is really just in trying to, market the product to the end users, which we don't have to do that much because once we have the branding revenues, the product costs about $30. So our marketing is more to the branding clients rather than to the end users. That's for us is the easy part.
Hi, my name is Andrew from the ATMS project of the UNDP. My interest to the panelists is to understand how you effectively build in scale for financial sustainability. Logically, in the first 3 to 5 years, you're getting a lot of money from USAID, IAP, and all the other interested partners who would love to get this social inclusion going. But effectively, once that funding starts to wind down, how do you ensure that you have a long-term platform to get your business financially sustainable? I'm looking at the issue of Mozambikes. I'm looking at the Ugandan situation. Over time, say over the next 10 years, we've had a lot of conflict in the northern Uganda. As we speak, you look at the trend of donor aid going down, and that means many NGOs are closing down or scaling down activity. That is your core customer. Where is the financial sustainability?
Yes, thanks for your question. So the reason why we started the initiative Research Africa was actually to service the private sector too, because we're also seeing that the donor funding was going down. At the same time, there's more demand for monitoring and evaluation or impact assessment of the efforts of NGOs. So in the coming years, we see that most probably the NGOs will still be a predominant part of our clientele, but we will use the platform for impact assessments as opposed to social marketing. But we really think that in the coming years, the private sector companies will take the overhand in view of more organizations from the West are coming in Africa to launch their services. So we will become a market research company, and we also see that there is a demand from the already established market research companies that don't have that mobile component yet, and we become their assistant service, so to speak. So the shift from NGOs, private sector, but also the existing market research company that hire us. So I think the sustainability part is taken care of.
Hi, I'm Michael from Tugende, and we finance motorcycle taxi drivers in Uganda to own their own motorcycles. And so one thing we've been thinking about a lot is actually branding. Right now we don't brand the motorcycles because we're afraid of what one really bad driver riding one of our motorcycles can do to our entire company brand-wise. So I'd love to hear from everybody except Boss about how you guys think about brand risk. So for rent to own, what happens if your equipment is faulty because you got a bad shipment? And for the fertilizer, what if one of your market agents dilutes it? And then, yeah, for the bicycles, what goes into making sure that the end user, I mean, I don't know how recklessly you can drive a bicycle, but let's say you're a terror on the road, that could do damage to the brand that's paying for the bicycle. So I'd love to hear how you guys think about that. Because it's something we're totally avoiding right now.
Yeah, so for us, it's not a huge concern in terms of the equipment not performing. We do guarantee our equipment, and we do once in a while have one or two pieces that is faulty, we replace it. That's not a big part of it. I think the risk for us comes with who we work with, like in terms of our agents. So if we make a mistake during the agent recruitment and we find someone who isn't a good representative of the company and acts in a way that we don't want them to, then that's definitely a risk. So for us, it's more checking the character of the agents that we do work with. So possibly that could work on your end as well, getting character references and that sort of thing.
I think he's right. Usually what we are most probably bothered is about the representatives who represent our brand or the company, because in past we had experienced the same thing where some of the representatives get involved into counterfeit products where your brands are involved. And as it's a chemical business for us, it's risky if something goes wrong, and then we are responsible for it. So we are really very keen, and that's why we have partnered with NutriAid, where they authenticate the representative for us. That's how it is.
Just to wrap up your question, we also don't necessarily have the exact issue that you're discussing with bicycles. Bicycles are so valuable that, if there was a bicycle that lost a component and the person couldn't use it anymore, they wouldn't just leave it laying in their yard, tarnishing the brand image. They would probably sell and get what they could for it, so it would be reused into a new bicycle. But I would give you a few tips that we've learned along the way. When it comes to incorporating branding into your model, make sure that you really think about it before you get started, because obviously you'll use a lot of overhead or even just your time, which is valuable when you're thinking about it. In Mozambique, they started to put branding on push carts, which bring around fruit and a variety of other items. They're just pretty large carts about this big that a young kid walks around pushing in the more rural area. And that failed because ultimately the advertisers were paying a lot of money. There wasn't a business that was really economizing the advertisements. They were paying these kids individually. They wanted a lot of money. They thought they deserved a lot of money. And the ground that they were covering in a given period of time was so little, plus they weren't cleaning their carts. There was a lot of failures with it, and after just a few months, they pulled out, even though in theory these push carts have a lot of space in the urban area. So the idea was there, but it didn't work. So you have to really make sure that there's a lot of value to the advertiser, that there's value to you, that all the components are in place.
Hi, Tim from Zanrec. This is maybe more a discussion point or an observation. I think everyone is going out there and doing their own piece of marketing, and they're targeting their groups. And obviously, marketing information that you gather is a valuable resource and tool. I was just wondering if there is a way or a forum or somehow to kind of get a meta database of all maybe the basic information that people have that allows starting businesses, NGOs to maybe take a lot of the overhead cost out of their initial kind of assessment, or if that's something that might be viable. I don't know. It's just an idea. If that makes sense, I can try and clarify any more.
Yeah, thanks. I don't really have any short answer to that. Is anyone in the panel want to reflect on that? Yeah.
It does sound like a lovely idea, and I think that we would value that type of information that would be available. In general, information is really expensive. And so it would have to be donor funded, or it would have to, and a lot of those are in specific programs that have end dates, and so there would certainly be hurdles in keeping that up to date year over time, because it seems like the type of company that would start that would sell it.
I think we have time for one last question. The gentleman in the front? Yes, please.
I'm Slomesi. I come from Kaluri Development Foundation based in Sinazongwe, southern province of Zambia. I just wanted to make a comment, especially on rent to own. To say maybe you might think your business has no customers, but if you traveled around the country and you talk to people like us, our NGO, which is based by the lake, there's a lot of potential which I can see for your products, like those engines which I saw. We have about more than 1,500 fishing vessels which use that type of machines which you have. So if you can come and then we talk, we introduce you to the people, you can even have a presentation with those people, I think you can break even. Then coming back to Mozambikes, yes, indeed I've seen the impact of your bicycles. I happened to do some work in an Nampula area there, and then I saw a lot of bicycles, especially in the mornings. But the only problem which I saw is that, yes, you are trying to introduce quite a very nice product on the market, but at the same time, the people who are using the product are exposed to danger. The safety element, I saw that it was really lacking in Mozambique. Be it bicycle users or motorbike users, they have no helmets. They are also using the same roads. I remember one of the taxi drivers which I used even saying, this gentleman is not paying tax, so he's not supposed to use this road. So I don't know whether there were any other discussions which were held maybe with the government to make sure that the safety aspect also comes in, like having maybe the side tracks for those bicycles, and like them being crowded within the tarred roads which are being used by motorists. There is a lot of fight taking place within. Thank you.
Well, I love your comment, because if I sit here and talk about all the hurdles, I don't know how it will come across in a presentation, but thank you for just highlighting all of the difficulties that we are facing. That's why what we're doing at Mozambikes is so much more than just selling bicycles. We are focusing a lot on safety campaigns, which starts from education, how to take care of your bicycle so the wheel doesn't pop off, teaching cars how to share the road. We've got an illustrator working on a cartoon campaign with different lessons of how to use the bicycle and ride safely. This year we're pitching just a study, an engineering study, topographical study on how we could put the first phase 1 of a bicycle lane network into Maputo. So we're doing a lot of different things. There are so many challenges. I'd love to get more of your feedback from your visit in Nampula.
Yeah, I'll just quickly respond.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, most definitely we've seen potential for the fishing communities as well along Lake Kariba in Zambia. We've spent a lot of our time in the last year building our foundation so that we can expand and grow across Zambia and even into other countries. So it's definitely on our map. Thank you.
Thanks. And thank you all for participating, for your interaction, and thanks to the panelists. I hope that we've come some steps towards addressing challenges when it comes to understanding the BOP market. Well, it's lunchtime, so I invite everyone to go and have lunch. It is if you go into the lobby and then keep to the right, you'll find the room for lunch further in there. And I do encourage you to go visit the exhibition as well during the lunch hour. And please be back at 1:10 so that we can start promptly. Thank you so much.